Welcome back to Align Yourself podcast. I am your host, Ebony, and today I'm joined by Liz, a somatic therapist who's here to share with us the powers behind somatic healing, what it is, and how it can help us both, you and I, to navigate trauma, whether that's on a micro day-to-day level or a deeper generational level. I myself have tried nearly every modality under the sun, but somatic healing is one I haven't yet tried. So I'm excited to have Liz here today with the both of us so we can learn how to implement somatic healing and even guide our children into using some somatic tools at home. In this episode, we cover this incredible modality so both you and I have a complete understanding as to how it can help you in your life and equip us both with the tools on how we can best heal through those harder moments life throws at us. Liz, welcome to Align Yourself podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Ebony. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about my absolute passion.
Liz, the person that is sitting with us today is most likely time poor. They're in a rush, they
Mm.
have places to be, things to do, and more than likely a child at their feet. So the chances of them making it through to the end of this episode in one sitting may be unlikely. So if there was one thing you want them to take from this episode, what would it be?
That doing the somatic healing will help you to shift your reality into what you really want your life to be.
And what would that look like?
So our lives are a creation of ours. Certainly when we're little, we have all these external influences that create belief systems in us. But when we're adults, we are consistently choosing in our lives from those belief systems, from traumas we may have had, from conditioning we've had, programming we've had, etc. So the art of somatic therapy is to get underneath all of that and undo it so that you start choosing from yourself, from who you are, from what you want from your life, from what lights you up. And that is very different from choosing from your trauma, choosing from your programming and your conditioning and your cultural systems. It's very different.
I really like that you've covered choosing from your trauma because I was just speaking on social media the other day in regards to creating passive income. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is talking about how I believe we all have this ability to create an infinite amount of wealth, and we all have the same amount of time in the day. We have the same amount of possibilities. And I was speaking about this, how I started an Etsy store a few years ago, and it just brings me in a little bit of passive income throughout the week. I don't touch it. I don't look at it. I barely looked at the website and as long as I can remember. And I had a lot of people reach out to me, and one person reached out to me in particular and said, "Oh, I couldn't do that. I'm not creative." Now, I said, "Look, do you mind if I just ask you something? Because what you're telling me," and I said, comes from such a place of love. This is not an attack. I can't remember how I worded it now, but basically, is this a story you've sold yourself? Because the thing that I shared was, oh, you can just jump on YouTube and there's tutorials and it walks you through how to open an Etsy store. Then the person said, I'm not creative enough. And I said, is that a story you've sold yourself? Because what's actually behind that? And she said, oh, and then it led to that. And I was like, well, there it is. And usually it comes from a place of fear or judgment or I don't have the time or there's so much more deeper than that. So I'm so glad you covered that because when you actually take it back and you ask yourself, where's this story come from? It usually, your mind tells you this memory that you may have from child or school or teacher or a friend or a partner or a loved one or blah, 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 that said something that is ingrained in your mind that has made you think, well, I can't do that because then they would judge me and they'll talk about me like that. So I have to stay where I am. So thank you. I want to go further into that. So coming back to trauma. But before we do, Liz, I want to hear about your journey. What led you to this space today?
Yeah, so I had some pretty significant trauma when I was younger. So I had institutional abuse and within the church system. And I really shut that down for a very long time and didn't talk to anyone about it and then carried it through my life. And I really know what it's like to choose from trauma. And so, for example, for me, the trauma of being abused by someone who is not only in a position of authority, but also apparently is the gateway to heaven and to God, you can imagine how confusing that is for a child. And it's a bit different now. Religion has changed a bit, but back then in the 80s, the religion that my family was part of, but they're not anymore, that was the gateway to God, So I was abused really in the name of spirituality. So you can imagine from that point on what that did to my belief system about who I am, my idea of myself as in the feminine, as a female. I identify as a female, and what that actually meant to be, what I thought my worth was, my connection with any sort of spiritual being was smashed up in that very moment. But because I was so young and I really had no idea how to unpack that, and in my day it wasn't really hugely spoken about, so it wasn't like parents and teachers had all the skills at their fingertips to be able to go, oh, that's, a risk that she is, risky behavior that she's actually demonstrating right now. What's going on for her? It wasn't like that. So now it's much clearer as to how parents and teachers identify what's going on with children. It's very well spoken about. So, yeah, so I became a young adult and then, an older adult that was choosing my life completely from trauma, from a basis of a lack of self-worth. I had a lot of drug abuse when I was younger. I ended up in a psychiatric ward when I was a teenager. I had an eating disorder. All the things. Actually, very early on, probably around when I was about 18 or 19, I just thought, I can't live like this any longer. Like, I literally I cannot live like this any longer. I won't. I will die if I continue like this. And I started my dive into the spiritual realm then, actually looking at it from a very different point of view. And I started studying Dr. Carolyn Miss's work. And I don't know if you've heard of her, but she wrote a book called Anatomy of the Spirit and talked about how we hold trauma in our energetic system and how that affects how we create our lives around us. And she's actually a medical medium who was working with doctors in the States. So I really was very taken by her work. And then in my early 20s, I started doing a lot of therapy, and I continued with therapy after therapy after therapy. And then finally, it was when I found the somatic work that I noticed just incredible changes to me and to my life. And, I had the choices that I was making and the triggers that I had suddenly started to shift and or disappear. And I thought, wow, this is really, really powerful work. So I went from there, Ebony, and I was actually really blown away by how certain things that used to really trigger me would literally stop triggering me. I just couldn't believe it. And that's the real power in somatic healing work, is when we heal so deeply that we're no longer feeling a certain thing or choosing in a certain way, because most of our choices are coming from, we may be getting triggered by something, we might be avoiding something, we might have a lot of ego that gets involved that's trying to protect us, and then our belief systems kick in and we make these choices. And so when we have that kind of domino effect going through us, then of course the choices we're making are not really suiting our lives. So I found it 100% changed my life, and that's when I put my head down and started to study it and work in that field myself.
So, for the person that is sitting with us today that may have never heard of somatic healing, or what does it look like? What do you have to do? Like, let's paint the overall
Mm.
picture so they can vision it in their mind.
This is the tricky part about somatic healing, because there are so many different modes that come underneath somatic healing. And if we bear it all the way back and say that somatic healing is actually, I think, the oldest form of doing the work. It is ancient. It's what our First Nations people used to do. It's what our healers used to do before Western medicine took over. But even when Western medicine started to take over, back in the Freudian days, he had disciples who said, or proteges who were like, this is how it works. It works through our body, that we create all this body armor when we've been hurt by life, and that body armor continues to dictate what we do with our lives. So it's been around for a very long time. What it means is that it is engaging the whole of you to do healing work. So when I say there's lots of different modalities, something like sound healing is also considered somatic therapy or somatic healing, right? Breath work is somatic healing, kinesiology is somatic healing, but they're very specific branches of somatic healing where you can go, this is exactly what that is. That fits into a very neat package. So, for example, with sound healing, we know that the sound frequencies work on our physical bodies. We know that that then affects our emotions and our minds and etc. It's got wonderful science behind it. The same with breath work, the same with kinesiology. You could even say that acupuncture is a type of somatic healing modality because they're working primarily with the body. So it's a bottom up approach.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so body up to
Uh-huh.
do the healing. Whereas if you look at other modalities of therapy like psychotherapy, are often more top down, which is brain down. So things like cognitive behavioral therapy, where you're working with your thoughts to try and understand what your behaviors are and why you have them, and then you're trying to rearrange them. A lot of coaching is very top down approach. So if you think of somatics as being bottom up, so you're engaging the body in this really powerful way to work with it, and then the other forms of therapy as being predominantly top down, but most will be a mixture of the both. So a lot of top down. So I have a master's in counselling, and most counsellors now will be doing the top down, but they'll also know somatic approaches as well that they bring into it, but it's primarily top down. And top down is sometimes the most important place to start. So, say, for example, with someone who's heavy in the throes of addiction, you'd be starting top down. You're not going to start bottom up with that. Sometimes it's the bottom up that you're going to start working with, and maybe that presents itself first as someone's got a physical issue that medical people can't diagnose, and often they will end up turning up for somatic therapy without doing any other talk therapy first. So the thing about the somatic world, though, with me with somatic healing, so I'm trained in both directions, so the top down and the bottom up, and a lot of somatic healers are. It becomes the way that I approach it has become my own unique way of doing it because it takes into account all of my own experiences, the way that I've been trained, and I bring that all into a session because it's not a one, there's no one accreditation for it. So if you think about someone who's a lawyer, for example, that's really clear what that is. They have to go through a certain number of things at university, and once they leave university to become accredited as a lawyer. Somatic healing is not like that. I don't know if it will become like that in the future, but there's no one thing that says these are all the things you need to do to become a somatic healer. Did that help? I know it's kind of hard. Like I can't give you a definitive response to that. I can talk to you about the way that I work, but I wanted to make it really clear that the way that I work is may have similarities to how someone else works if they've had similar training to me, but it will be different from a somatic healer who's had quite different training from me.
Yes, no, it really did. It was a really good overview. You mentioned you've been trained in the top down and the bottom up approach. So if someone were to come and visit you or see you in person, what would it look like working with their body?
Good question. So first of all, I would sit with them and I would talk to them first to find out what's happening for them because they've got a story they're bringing in. There's a reason they're coming in, and through that story, I will start to notice the way their body moves. I will notice when they are shutting down in certain ways, if they're touching certain parts of their body. So, for example, sometimes people can be talking about a situation that's very difficult for them. They might touch their throat, and that will be like ting, and I'll write down a note. There's something that's happened around the throat with this, or their tummy, or they might curl their shoulders over and drop and hunch down like this. So in the first instance, I'm looking at how their body is reacting to what they're saying because their body is speaking to me at the same time.
My body's like itching in all different areas while we're talking about looking at my body. My body's just going, it's being seen right now. Oh, I'm
Being
just
seen.
feeling myself in the back of my neck and then my
Yes.
face. And I'm like, oh my goodness, it's funny how the body just starts to respond. And I'm like, oh, why? Where did this come from? But it instantly feels that, oh, I'm being seen.
Yeah, the body loves being seen and it loves talking. Like you'll notice once you sort of pique your interest in this area, you'll notice people's bodies talk all the time. And sometimes people have really shut down their body, and you'll see that in their body too. Their bodies become quite stuck. Our bodies love to talk. So then after that, sometimes I might leave them in the chair for quite a while, and they sit in a very comfortable chair that they can get a lot of support from. And I might do some of the body work there with them if it's coming up then. So for example, if they're telling me a story and they find their voice, they keep losing their voice at that point in time, then we'll start working with that right then and there. So there's always grounding involved. So I will, in whatever way works for them, we'll ground them, and I'll talk them through that. It might be, pop your feet. Can you feel your feet? Can you feel your toes on the ground? Can you feel the chair underneath you? Okay, lean back into the chair a bit. Can you feel your breath in your nostrils? And that helps to ground them. And then we can work with what's going on inside their body. There might be a big, intense feeling that's come up inside their body that we start to work with. The importance of grounding them at that point, and this is a critical thing about doing the somatic work, is that in that moment that they were talking to me about something and their body showed me a big reaction. So they're very triggered by what they're talking about. It's really big for them. Their body's showing that to me. In that moment when they feel like they're getting heightened, their nervous system is starting to go into a threat response to what's happening in their body as they're telling me the story. So the grounding part is to ground them back, let the nervous system know they're actually safe right now. And then when the nervous system goes, oh, okay, we're not actually in that situation. We're safe. There's no threat around me at all. And then we can go into tracking the sensation in the body, what it is. We might talk to it. It might lead to an emotional release quite quickly. It might lead to images that come up. Sometimes the body talks to people in images. It might lead to that. It might lead to the person seeing colors. It might lead to words that want to come out. So it's very body followed. So I will follow what the body is telling me in each step of the way. And I'm grounding, using my tools to help them to express it, using my tools to help their nervous system say, oh, I'm okay here. I'm not under threat. So they can do this release work.
Well, Liz, I have been noting down things that you've been saying that I definitely want you to touch on, because I myself have required a lot of support around all of these different areas, and I can only assume that the person that's sitting with us today listening to this also may need support in their life in different areas. So I just want to plug in a little trigger warning, because I really want to ensure that whoever's listening gets the most out of this conversation. The questions I'm going to ask in a minute are going to be confronting. I'm just going to get into it because I think there is so much suppressed trauma that people have gone through in their life that they don't recognize or know that perhaps something that happened to them or that was said to them, or something they experienced as a child in their family home, they just may have thought was normal, but their body feels sad. It feels lifeless. It feels uncomfortable and hard to get up some days. And if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you would know that something that we have unpacked is the body stores trauma and it needs to be released. And if not, there is a chance it can turn into disease. It can turn into sickness. And so I'm here to have these conversations and to get people onto the podcast to ensure everybody is getting the most out of their life and removing and processing that stuck emotion. So if someone were to sit with you and I'm going to think of the top 3 things off the top of my head that might be really common. One is going to be sexual abuse. They may have the stuck throat because most people have never talked about it or told anybody. So to be sat in the chair looking at you, knowing there's a memory in their mind from their childhood they've never spoken about. They've told themselves it's normal. They may not even understand yet that it's sexual abuse or see themselves as a victim. Their throat is going to be shut off. And their shield, their body armor that you mentioned, is going to be pretty built up. If they were to be sat with you today and you want to speak to them and invite them in the safest way to feel safe, come to you or to come to somebody to heal that wound, where would you lead them and what would you say to them?
Well, I love how you've asked that question, Ebony, because actually the foundational thing that we need to do in our practice is to ensure the person feels extremely safe. And that can take several sessions. I've had clients, more than one, that have come to me and said, I don't want to talk about my trauma. And I say, okay, no problem. And then we go through and work with their body instead. Like we don't have those conversations. And that's fine. We can do that too. But what's interesting is when they feel safe enough, the story starts to come out. So I meet the person where they're at and I help them to feel safe again in their body. That's the first step. When they feel safe enough, then we start to go in titrated amounts. So what that means is we don't do really big catharsis in my space. We don't do that. It can cause havoc. We go so slowly and so lovingly and so gently. Someone who has had sexual abuse, their body will feel like an unsafe place. So a key part of it is to reconnect the mind and the body into a new relationship where the mind can come in with curiosity into the body and help the body to feel safe again. Yes, there may be a lot around their throat. Sometimes the throat can have a real freeze in it. Sometimes it can be quite shut down. Sometimes it can have a like a fight response in it. They can be really
Defensive.
defensive. Yes, because that creates boundary around them.
It's safe.
Mm.
Safety.
So it does depend on person to person, but I've had people that have come to me that their nervous systems, there's no way they can sit in the chair with me. They can't lie on my bed. I have a bed that I work from as well. They they can't do that. It feels too unsafe. So we might actually just go, I might say to them, let's just go for a walk. And we'll go for a walk and we'll go down and we'll touch trees and we'll talk and we'll sit on the earth and I will help them to orient around so the nervous system keeps knowing it's safe. It's whatever they need when they show up in my space. That's how we work with it. Once they feel safe enough, the work with sexual abuse might look like doing a lot of work around shame in their body. And how their shame shows up will differ from person to person, but let's say it's voice stuff. The nervous system will actually paralyze your vocal cords when you don't feel safe to speak, or when you maybe start speaking about something that was not okay for you to speak about when you were little. So that can take a lot of time to undo that. And it's a case of reconnecting with the voice. We might do mind voice dialogue, which is amazing. Like the layers that come up when you do the mind body dialogue is just absolutely incredible because the mind and the voice will speak to each other. And so the mind might say to the voice, why aren't you speaking up? And the voice might say back, it's just not safe to. And we start that dialogue and we can get underneath it to a degree where we can start undoing what the mind and the voice are actually thinking of each other. Because the mind can become very critical of the voice because it's not speaking up. There might be
Especially if it's
work to
been met with
do.
offensiveness in the past, then you tell yourself the story that when I speak my truth, it's met with attack. So you then shut down your truth. And if that gets embedded in
Yeah.
again and again and again and again at a young age, you become an adult that there's no safety in the environment. Your body doesn't feel safe in the environment to that. And so that's when that happens.
Well, the other thing that can happen, I mean, that's yes, definitely. The other way it can happen, which is a much deeper layer, is that our own mind starts to criticize our own voice for not speaking up. So we start to turn the hate in on ourselves. Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I speak up? Yeah. And that's where doing that deeper internal work and reconnecting different parts of our body and our mind to each other and finding out the dialogue that's going on between them is so incredibly powerful and so incredibly healing. And it really is amazing. I learned this particular technique in the neuroaffective touch training that I've done. And you can have dialogues with different organs in your body, and they will all have something to say. And as long as I get the client into the right space where they feel really safe, then and I talk them through it and say, just let your mind speak to, your liver, for example, or your throat or your heart. Just imagine they're out sitting on a picnic bench together having a cup of tea, and we're going to start a dialogue. And sometimes the client can be like, really? And I'm like, just see, get curious about it. And what comes up is always blows them away as well, and gives them a deep insight into how they've actually turned the trauma they received from the external world in on themselves, and that becomes the part we then need to pick apart. However, it could be that we want to do some dialogue with, let's say it's a woman who was sexually abused, and we do dialogue with her vagina. And that can be so beautiful and so amazing, where her mind is actually speaking to her vagina, or sometimes her heart speaking to her vagina. And it's so healing. If you imagine that two best friends who had been estranged because someone threw some trauma into the middle of them, and then they come back together and they talk openly with love about each of their experiences of what happened, and think about how healing that is. That's what we can do with your body. All the different organs and systems in your body, we can teach them to talk to each other again.
Something that comes up for me in this is my own journey with like German new medicine. So
Mhm.
German new medicine has been a really amazing tool for me as a mum, and coinciding with, I guess, the whole thing around viruses not existing, right? So whether or not they do or they don't, this isn't what I'm saying. But what I love about German new medicine, and also looking at life and the body as if a virus doesn't exist, has led me to true understanding of how the body works and true healing. Because when you go, okay, when you look at the runny nose, you then look at the stink conflict. Okay, there's something in the environment, the nose and the nasal cavities are saying is there's a toxin in my environment and I need to clear it out. So when you start actually looking at all the symptoms as opposed to, oh, it's just a viral that you've picked up,
Mm.
you start to actually go, okay, what's in my environment? If you follow me on socials, I've been sharing our journey with a mold toxicity and mold illness in our home, and having that understanding and having that viewpoint of, okay, if viruses don't exist, and using German new medicine as a tool. So the way I do that is getting the symptom. I just put it into Google or ChatGPT and basically just say, coming from the approach of the German new medicine emotional response to the body, my daughter's got a cough. What does that mean? And one of the things that comes up for a cough is it's a conflict. It's a healing conflict from a
Mm.
threat. Now, a cough, German new medicine actually says, is being yelled at. And I had to take a really hard look at myself and go,
Mm.
have I yelled at my daughter? I've been like, do you know what? I bloody have. I had my second baby, and within the first 6 months of bringing a second baby into the home, and you're feeding the baby to sleep, and the toddler's coming in, screaming, and you're going, Zeke, just stop. Can you get out, please? Blah, 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 blah. And then it follow up with a cough. And when you actually look at it, like, she didn't pick that up. Her environment is unsafe, and I need to take accountability and responsibility for that. And to me, in my perception, in my view of how I want to be as a mum and the environment I want for my kids, is that's fucking healing.
Yeah.
To go, fuck viruses. Shit, we're not picking up all of these things. We actually need to look at our environment, and that's the emotional response to our environment as well. So, from your understanding, Liz, what is your perception of the connection between our emotions and illness?
Huge. So it's suppressed emotions, really, or emotions that feel overwhelming and that we can't cope with. So emotions are a natural part of being human. And we have the primary emotions and we express them as part of life. We have grief. So if we lose someone, we grieve them, or we lose something, we grieve them. We have anger, we have fear, we have joy, we have these primary emotions. Now, when we're little, so like you're talking about your daughter, when we're little, we don't have the capacity to self-soothe. So our emotions feel bigger than we are. And if you want to remind me to circle back to how that works in a minute, I will. Yeah, because that's really powerful, actually, how that happens. But yeah, when a child's little, their emotions are bigger than they are. So they need well attuned parents to help to guide them and to guide them in a way that they go, it's not unsafe to have emotions. You're not bad for having emotions, and this is what you do with them. So, for example, if a toddler hits another toddler because the first one took the toy off them, it's fair enough. I don't want people taking my stuff either. It's not the anger in the toddler that was the issue. What they need to learn is what to do with it so that they are socially acceptable beings. And often in the past, children have been shamed for having the anger rather than taught what to actually do with it. So in your case, what you're talking about with your daughter is I totally understand like how she's getting overwhelmed. So her body's showing the stress in a different way. In adults, when we've never had well-attuned parents, for whatever reason, we may have had one well-attuned or one who was and then went through trauma. Like there are so many ways in which parents can fall out of tune with their children. But when we've been shamed for our emotions, we haven't had parents that have helped us to learn what they are and how to create support for us. They haven't soothed us. We learn how to self-soothe by being soothed by the adults first. When we haven't had that, then when we are older, when we're adults, our emotions can feel like a threat to us. They can be the predator. They can feel like the tiger. Because if we're shamed for our emotions when we're little, then our emotions, that tells us that our emotions are a threat to our connection to our primary caregivers. And that is dangerous for us because our nervous system is wired to say, I've got to connect to my primary caregivers because it's so ancient, or the tribe's going to leave me and I'll get eaten by wolves. So we'll shut ourselves down in whatever way we need to remain connected to our parents. So you get shamed for emotions, you're going to shut them down. Over time, that creates more and more stress in your system because emotions are their energy in motion. They are meant to move out of us. That's how they work. So, grief, we are meant to take the time to allow that to move out of us. Good emotional hygiene, anger. Like if we're carrying around a lot of irritation, we need to work out ways to start to release that from our body. Otherwise, our body has to tighten itself up to hold them in. So now I'm going to circle back to how toddlers get overwhelmed because this is going to really make more sense to you as to why the body has to brace so hard and how that can end up in disease. Because everyone's heard of the vagus nerve right now. Like it's been really spoken about a lot in the last sort of 5 years. It's a really important part of the nervous system work. There's different branches of the vagus nerve, but let's just call it the vagus nerve to begin with, okay? And it's often spoken about as originating in the brainstem and then moving. Vagus means wandering, and it wanders through the whole body and innervates all of the organs. So it goes from the brainstem through. But the thing is that it actually began growing in the pelvis. So when your toddler was inside your body, Ebony, their vagus nerve started growing from their pelvis and grew up and went through and innervated all the organs and then hooked into the brain. So we see the brain as like the operating system, right? But the vagus nerve is sending all the messages up to the brain. The flow of information between the brain, which is the brain, so top down and bottom up, the brain only has at most 20% of the say. Some people say it's 5%. The upward motion of information and energy is at least 80%. Our emotions begin as sensations in our body, a relationship between sensations and our organs that then travel through the vagus nerve for expression. So when we're a little baby and we don't have any language, we don't have thoughts, and we have a wet nappy, we feel it in our body and then we express it. And as toddlers with that too, we feel all this overwhelming emotion and we express it. So think about that toddler who hit the other one that took his toy. Like that was just like, bang, he doesn't think it through. I think I'm going to go hit that kid. Like it just is so quick and it's so impulsive. The only way that we can shut down our emotions if we are trying to suppress them is to brace our body. We have to brace ourselves along the pathway of the vagus nerve to prevent all that information coming up to our brain. That is what causes inflammation, illness, body tension, so many issues. That's what causes it. Now, there are certainly other things that contribute, that can contribute to our illness, but that's the connection between emotions and illnesses in our body. So we need to have emotional hygiene to be able to release those emotions out. So if you imagine, see this water bottle that I've got,
Yeah.
if you imagine there's lemonade inside that, and every time we have an emotion that we suppress because we've never been taught what to do with it, we think that emotion, like I've had lots of people come to me to work with their anger and they want to do anger management. And I'm like, how about we befriend your anger and really get to know it, And they're like, what? Like, there's nothing wrong with anger. It's just an emotion, It's just that culturally you've been taught it's bad. But let's say every time that person got angry and they got in trouble for it, it's like shaking this up again and again and again until the pressure is like inside here. And then finally, we either get triggered and the lid flies off and we vomit all over other people, or the pressure gets so much that our body has to express it in symptoms.
So much is coming up for me now. And again, I've been writing down notes. I feel like this is going to be a big episode and I'm here for it. If I need to break it down into 2, let's just do it because I am getting so much from this conversation, Liz. So before I come back to the 3 top things that I feel like people are going to visit you for. So the first was sexual abuse. The 2 more I'm going to come into in a bit is insecurities and anxiety. We're going to come back to that in a little while. Whilst we're still talking about children, something that's coming up for me is I started doing an aware parenting course probably about 5 months ago with Marion Rose. And one of the things I found was when my daughter was crying, it was triggering my body and I was getting this rage. So my 3-year-old, she'll have an outburst, really emotional, and it just triggered my body. My whole body, it would like go on fire, and I'm like, ugh. And when I sat with myself and I was like, okay, why? Why do you feel this way? Why is this so triggering to you? The thought that came up for me one day was, well, she's not allowed to feel like that because I was never allowed to feel like that. And I was like, oh, that's
Ouch.
interesting. Okay, well, do you want her to be able to feel her emotions, or do you also want to tell her that her emotions aren't allowed? And I was like, oh, fuck. I want her to feel safe with her mum, me, with her emotions, the good, the bad, the ugly. And I was like, fuck, I'm going to need help with this one. So Marion Rose is an aware parenting and she teaches and instructs you how to listen to feelings. And I started her course, and by module 2, she basically said, the reason you can't sit with their feelings is because you haven't allowed yourself to sit with your own. And in other words, she says it in much gentler, way gentler other words, but that's my interpretation of it. And so she was like, before you go ahead with this module, you're going to want to sit down and you're going to want to have a journal and you're going to be by yourself and let's go into it. And so she invites you and holds you into, okay, let's go into why these feelings make you feel a certain way. And one of the things that I also learn is that babies are perfect and children are perfect. And something I'm so passionate about because this brings us to all the other modalities of, I'm not going to get off topic, but why I believe so wholeheartedly that I don't believe in vaccines. I don't believe we need to put anything in the body to heal. The body in the right environment should heal itself. So one of the things she mentioned is kids are perfect. They know what they're doing.
They are.
And so if, let's say, for example, they're at the park. So this was for me, this is a story of my own where Ziggy couldn't yet talk, but every time we'd go to the park and we'd be around other kids, should be fine. And then on the car, in the way home, she would have a big emotional release. So she would be crying. And so for those who don't know, an emotional release is, big outburst in emotion. So it could be crying, anger, blah, 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 blah. And the body's getting rid of it out of the body. And that's how they do it. So as parents, we can either be like, you're not allowed to do that, da, 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 and that suppresses it. So, and I'm going to go off topic because being a parent is freaking hard. So it's trying to
Mm-hmm.
know when supporting them to have the right behavior, but also trying to support the emotional release at the right time, at the right place, and blah, blah, blah. It's very hard. But what Marion says is that kids are really good. We need to revisit trauma. Our body needs to for it to heal and for us to process it and get to the other side. And I think as adults, we don't think we can. It's like if we revisit it, it's too hard and we think we're going to be stuck there. So we choose not to. However, as kids, for example, with Ziggy, say, for example, something happened and it made her upset. So let's say a kid pushed her at the playground. And then at the time, I'd be like, when we're out and about, she wasn't having any big tantrums. Like every different kid shows their emotions in other ways. She wasn't having big tantrums out in public, but I'd noticed that she would hold on to it and then do it at home. And it wasn't until she was a little bit older. One night we're lying in bed and we're talking about the day, and she spoke about a specific incident, and she embedded it as if it was her fault. And I started recording it because I was like, as I could hear, as she's starting to learn her words, and she was asking me, Ziggy, shut the door, and it made Moana cried, and I said, yeah, but that was okay. And then Lydia came and opened the door, but you didn't know. You didn't know that the door wasn't supposed to be shut. And I would have never known. She internalized this doing quote unquote visuals, micro trauma that we look at as such a minuscule thing, but in her body was such a huge thing because she made her friend her best friend, her really close friend that she loves and adores and admires, and she closed the door and she didn't know she wasn't meant to, and her friend cried, and then the mum came and fixed it, and so she internalized it that she did something wrong, and I didn't clue on to that. But it wasn't till that night, and I actually recorded it and I shared it with my friend, and I said, look what Ziggy's saying, and she was like, wow, she's so emotionally clued on and touched on. So anyway, we spoke about it, and then and we spoke it through. And in that, and I come back to that because with my aware parenting, children need to revisit it. And so without that emotional intelligence of being able to have the words to talk it through, she would have at other times had a big cry on the way home because she bottled it up, and I wouldn't have known what was wrong. I was just seeing as, what is wrong with her? She's always crying. I can't. But now as I've learnt the tools to understand what's going behind the feelings, it's showing me I actually need to be actively listening and putting myself in the position of her body and seeing all of these little micro things that are going on. So then when we leave, the mask, when she lets the mask fall off and she knows it's safe in the car with her mum on the way home to have a big outburst, I can say, I'm here with you, I'm listening, for her to feel that. But I have to say, it can be really hard and challenging. However, I have really loved that in my aware parenting journey, it has guided me. But in that, as a parent, what Marion does guide you in this pretty in-depth course is you need to feel. When you have
You
kids,
do.
you need to
Yeah.
feel, and you need to know what you're feeling, and you need to be honest with that. And it can be confusing. Like most people, most people haven't been raised by people that know how to guide us. I still don't know. It's really hard. My question I have for you is, talking about kids and talking about how to be an active listening parent, understand where our kids are feeling whilst in a heavily distracted environment, because we are distracted. Most mums
Mm.
in the last, I'm just going to say, in the last 100 years, most mums are working and away from kids, so they're not seeing
Mm.
everything our kids exposed to, are hearing, are seeing on social media. And then when they come home, the really sad thing is, and I put my hand up and say, this is me, and this is something that I speak about within my home with my fiance all the time, is I think one of the biggest things I am going to impose trauma on my child is how much I'm on my phone and how distracted I am.
Mm.
And in my mind, I'm home. I'm a stay-at-home mum. I'm there, but sometimes I'm not there, and I'm in other places. And we all know what it's like to be around somebody who's not actually there. Their mind is elsewhere, and their body's present, but their mind, and it makes us feel unseen. It makes us feel unheard. Doesn't make us feel safe. So this is something I've had to really take ownership of and be accountable for. and learn how to actively listen, because our kids are trying to lean on us to hold us through these emotions, and we are not actively listening. So my question is for you. How can we best support our kids in this world where we are so distracted and their bodies are screaming out for that emotional support, emotional safety, and actively listening to their needs?
So first of all, like we never get it perfect as parents. We've all got to take that pressure off because it's a long journey and you do the best you can. I don't know if you've heard that term, the good enough mother. And that it's actually a psychological term. It's about being the good enough mother or the good enough parent because you're never going to get it completely right. And we have all had generations of trauma handed down to us, and we're all trying to work it out. And the fact that you're even speaking in this way, and that you've set up a space and you have all these followers who are thinking in this way is so brilliant, because what you'll pass on will be a lot less than your parents passed on, and then what your children pass on will be less than you passed on. And I think if we work towards that, to go, I'm going to do the best I can. I know that I'll fall at times, but I will do the best that I can. If that is what you're trying to do, know that your grandchildren will have amazing parents, So, and definitely though, I mean, it is always about self-reflection and pulling ourselves up on things. I also want to just touch on as well, that distraction thing is so deep and it's so multi-layered, because when we have been taught that our emotions might lead to being disconnected from our primary caregivers, so our nervous system then takes that as a threat to our life. When we feel those emotions come up, our nervous system goes, this is a life threat, as if there was a tiger in the room about to eat you. So if your child is bringing up emotions that you're getting really triggered by, remember that, like have compassion for yourself, that, oh my gosh, my nervous system has gone into a threat response. And sometimes we know where that's come from, sometimes we don't. We don't actually need to know where it's come from, because we can know how to work. We can know in the present moment that's going on for us, right? So we need to work with it. And I sometimes wonder as well if that also leads to distraction, because the distraction is a way that it's a way that we self-soothe, and it's not a great way of self-soothing. It's not a healthy way of self-soothing, but it is a way of self-soothing. So any sort of disassociation, anytime your mind wants to go somewhere else, it is the mind is like, I've just got to get out of my body for a little while because it all feels so overwhelming in here. So it really is with that distraction for you as a parent. And okay, so what I do is I've noticed times where my kids have needed to talk to me, but I've been in the middle of something because I have my own business like you do. And times where I've gone, I just can't talk right now. And I'm getting so much better at not doing that anymore and just stopping everything and going, do you know what? This is not important. I'm going to stop and I'm going to listen right now. My children are older though, so you're the little. So your children, like, they need stuff so much and it's overwhelming. It's really, you don't have the support around you that we're meant to have around us when we're mothers. You don't have it. I didn't have it when my children were really young either, because it's that community is not there in the way that it used to be. We're meant to have like grandparents living around us and helping to parent the entire time. So it is a tough gig. With a distraction, if you really want to get underneath it and you are not able to do that through setting simple boundaries for yourself, which might be, I turn off my phone during this time. Um, or I use my phone and I use all the rest of it. I use my technology at this particular time, right? And I use it for this long each day. And when I'm using my technology, this is what my children are doing. That's, those sorts of boundaries you can put in place for yourself and stick to them as much as possible. And if you find that that's not possible because there's a level of you that just keeps going to it, it might be an addictive thing. It's very easy for us to become addicted to our phones. I think they're possibly one of the biggest addictions we actually have, to be honest.
I talk about this
Um,
lately with my friends, saying it's a silent meth epidemic. But when you look at it, like when you actually look at your phone like it's a drug, it starts to actually hit you how bad it is. I was actually speaking to a friend about this the other day, actually, how sad it is, because so many mums are saying we're so overstimulated. But my first thought to that is, well, how much you're on your phone. I see that we are in a world where we being so gentle. So I'm going to be a little bit blunt about this because this is just how I've had to speak to myself. If our kids, especially a 3-year-old who asks the same questions on repeat over and over and over and over and over again, and then you snap and then you go, I'm overstimulated. In my life, and I think a lot of mums can actually stop and resonate that it's like, well, if you're on your phone and they're trying to talk to you and your brain is in the other planet that they can't see, and then they're asking and they're asking because you're not responding, and then you snap at
Mm.
them and you get angry at them, they're actually a victim. I think a lot of us mothers are then going, I'm so overwhelmed, I don't have the support, and trying to play the victim. And I'm like, yeah, nah, I think we actually all need to look in the mirror and do better. And it's going to
If
be,
it's about phones, I think so, definitely. If it's about the level of attention we're able to pay to our children, but also, is there something underlying that? Because that's where you need to dig deeper and look at shadow stuff that might be going on. Did you not receive adequate connection from your parents, and therefore connection feels dangerous? Because so I know that I said that your nervous system needs to connect to remain safe, and it does, but that connection might look like my parents don't actually want to engage in conversation with me. So to remain biologically connected to them, I need to go and do my own thing. And so then when your child is trying to connect to you, that can actually trigger this response internally. Yeah. So we want to really like dive as deep as we can with everything and go, but what's the next layer? But what's the next layer? Because I believe that behavior is never isolated, right? So we've all been given these phones, we've bought these phones that have all these things that can, take up our time. And, I must say, I get onto TikTok and I can get lost in there. I love it. Like there's so many, but it's a waste of my life, right? But sometimes it's a fun tune out as well, and sometimes I learn really interesting things. That's an aside. But we have got these things that are very tempting to go onto, very distracting for us. But let's go to the next level, Ebony. Like, what is happening for us that we are then not using that as just a tool? Because it's all actually just a tool. We can use it. I love going on Instagram and finding someone. Like, I go, oh, where do I want to go tonight? Do I want to go to a cafe? Like, which one? I'll have a look on Instagram, or I might see what my friends are doing, or I might be looking up a different business and I might get an interest in this particular thing that someone's doing, or there's a lot of people that post stuff that I absolutely love, and I love following them, so there's nothing wrong with that, but it's a tool. So it's not my whole life, and it shouldn't be our whole lives. And I am fully guilty of getting too involved in it. I have an online business. It's very easy for me to get a bit lost in it, but it's about having really hardcore boundaries with yourself. And when you can't keep those boundaries, you've just got to keep going to the next layer, the next layer, the next layer, the next layer. Why am I doing this? What is going on for me that I'm actually doing this?
I noticed that I actually can do it around certain people. And
Hmm.
when I stopped and questioned myself, I was like, oh, how safe do I feel? Or how wanted, or how safe do I feel like? Because I know there's certain people I catch up with and that I have in my life that when I see, there's no fucking way I'm picking up my phone, because when I see them, my whole body is fuck yes. Like I'm in, we're talking, I'm like high on
Yes.
life. Like, and I'm such a mirror. I'm such a mirror of who I'm around and who I'm with and who I'm next to. So if I feel like my whole authentic self is so safe, like my two best friends, Kat and Nuzzy, holy fucking shit. My body is so safe with them. They get the full all of me, the good, the bad, the ugly. They get the exciting, they get the high, they get the low, they get all of me. And in that time, there's no time to check my phone because I'm too busy with them. Present. I'm so
Mm.
here in my body when I'm with you, da 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 da. And then there's other times where I'm like, I don't know who to be. I don't know what to say. I don't know what feels safe. So I'm just going to go and just go on my phone. So I can see when you reflect that where your body's at and where it feels safe and how it feels safe.
We need to have boundaries with ourselves, right? And I get like you saying, we need to be like tough on ourselves, like, what are you doing, doing this, etc. But we also need to unpack, because sometimes when we're too hard on ourselves, then we don't get to see the underlying stuff. We just become critical. But we want to get to the underlying stuff. And what you've just said is really beautiful insight, that there are certain people that you go, I wouldn't go near my phone around that person. But then if you are around someone, you start picking up your phone, what's going on for you? Yeah. Do you not feel safe around them? Are you just bored with them? That person might just be really boring.
I
They're
said
out
this the
there.
other I actually said this the other day because I have a very strong rule that when I'm catching up with someone, I'm not allowed to be on my phone. But I was at the beach with other friends the other day, and the kids were busy and they were being looked after, and we're talking about bikini, like just bikinis or something online. And I was like, right, cool, whipped out my phone. I'm like, kids are busy. They're like, Siggy was on the playground, Sage was crawling around. They were both watched, and I was like, now's my time, now's my chance. And I was fully in this website, fully like having a flick through their whole website. So obviously there's pieces of times that you've got to pick up your phone, and you like, it doesn't necessarily mean you don't feel safe. It's just like, I'm going to use my time. My kids are distracted. They're having fun. If I'm on my phone right now, they don't have to see it, because I try to be mindful of how much I'm on my phone in front of them as well. There was something that you said there that I really want to come back to in regards to what's underneath it. Addiction. Addiction. Okay. So addiction to
Mm.
our phones. When it comes from the healing space and the body, what is that telling us?
Well, any addiction is us like reaching outside ourselves for something. We're trying to pull something in, whether it's food, whether it's drugs, whether it's like, whether it's lovers.
Validation.
Like, we can have addictions to love. Addiction can be even harder to kick than a drug addiction. So love addiction, when you have a lot of attachment trauma and then you meet someone, and this actually properly happens in a proper relationship with a narcissist, where it sets up this actual addictive process where you're getting these specific hits in your brain when they're being really lovely to you, and then when they dump you, you're going into such a panic that you're desperate for the hits again, so you go back to them. So there is the neurochemical stuff that's actually going on that needs to be paid attention to, and it's the same with the phone as well. And it's the same with like, getting a hit of meth, for example. I've actually never tried meth, but my understanding of it is, and I've worked in the addictions area, is that it gives you such an incredible high the first time you have it. It's like high like you've never had before. So your brain's like, I need to go back and get that. I need to go back and get that. So if I look at my own history of using drugs and alcohol, it was to feel better about myself, to try and fit in, to take away some of my anxiety. So I'm reaching for something outside of myself to try and self medicate what's going on inside me. But the work is going underneath it and going, why do I need that thing to try and self medicate? Like, what is it that's going on for me? And it could be childhood trauma. It can be stuff that we've taken through from other generations. So there's been a study done on, I mean, we know that things can travel down through the DNA, but there's been a study done on grandchildren of Holocaust survivors, and that they are more prone to like anxiety, for example, and they were never in the Holocaust, but it's been passed down. So that person could then have a whole lot of anxiety. They always feel anxiety. And let's say you're constantly feeling like you're ping, 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 ping all the time. You might just go and grab your phone and go, oh, that feels better. I scroll through my phone. I'm not feeling all this stuff inside me for a little while. Or if you've had, other really intense, deep trauma, lots of sexual abuse or something else, and you go and you get something from outside you and take it, it just makes you feel better for a while, right? So, and then we get addicted to it. So the addiction process is set up where our brain's like, I get this hit of dopamine when I grab that thing. So I'm going to keep grabbing it, and we keep going back for it. So
So
that's
just
where
to
you need to have your personal boundaries with yourself to go, if I want to stop this, I actually need to properly work on stopping this, because there's an actual physical addiction that's going on, as well as an underlying thing that's led me to that point in time. If you were born and you had a beautiful life with two parents who adored you, and you're brought up by a big family and everyone adored you, and you never really had a major trauma that was, or you may have, and it was worked through, you're unlikely to end up going and getting addicted to something. I mean, it's like, it's not out of the question, but you're less at risk for going and getting addicted to something.
as a generation have been raised around a lot of alcohol, and that alcohol is a perfect example of something that comes to the forefront of our mind when we talk about addiction. I think drug addiction gets put on like it's the worst, but in my perception, I think alcohol is the worst. And I don't think you need to drink alcohol every day to have an addiction to alcohol. And so, but what's coming up for me is that I think a lot of my generation would say that they were raised by that alcohol generation, and lots of generations before that would turn to alcohol, where now it's like a lot of our generation looks at alcohol as so bad, and like alcohol is killing families, and parents that are alcoholics and stuff are this. However, our generation is now still hasn't healed from it and is using their phone or video games as the new addiction.
Mm.
So let's dive into that. How can we learn to heal from that?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because you think about, like, we could dive so deeply, and there's probably not enough days to do a podcast for to go as deep as we need to go on this, because alcohol has been pushed, it's been promoted, it's a way of controlling the masses, it's a way of dumbing us down, it's toxic to our systems, it's highly addictive, and it makes a lot of people a lot of money, and it's poisonous. So that's been plugged into our brains, right? We've been programmed to, not so much anymore because people have seen through that. People now understand how bad it is. But certainly, like when I was a kid, it was, you just had alcohol at every single barbecue. It was just part of life. That's not normal. That got programmed into us by people who want us to buy alcohol. Before that, it was cigarettes. So in my mum's day, they were told that smoking when you're pregnant would help to relax you. Like, it's insane. It's absolutely insane.
Oops,
It's
no,
never
got
been
that one
true.
wrong.
It's never been true, but who was doing that? Who was programming us to believe that, right? People who did not care about our welfare. The same is happening with technology. It is set up in a way that as you flick through it, it is the most addictive thing. Like, it's designed in a way to keep you addicted to it, so you keep coming back to it over and over again. And it's being programmed to do that to us, to get our attention, to sell us stuff. Like, how often do you find yourself talking about something to someone and then you see all the ads for it on your phone? It's
100,
set up to do that.
100%
It
all
tracks
the
us.
time.
It tracks us as well. Like, I
Data
mean, I pulled into my
collection.
driveway yesterday and it said, do you want to set up different settings when you get home? And I'm like, how did you know I just got home? It's terrifying what's going on with these things. These things have been created to get us addicted to them, and then to track us, to control us, to sell to us. So when I put it in those terms, number one, how does everyone feel about that? That you're being conned, you're being taken advantage of with them, and you need to get unaddicted from them, and you need to take back your life, and you need to do things like turn it off. Like, turn it off. I turn off my Wi-Fi all the time. I don't want to. It's like sitting in front of an X-ray all day going like this. I don't want that. I don't want my Wi-Fi on all the time. I turn it off. I turn off my phone as well. And I'm no, like, Holy Mary when I talk about this, because I have my days where I'm really bad at it, but I try really hard to get off this thing and walk outside and get some sunshine and just go, yes. I would say, to begin with, set limits for yourself on all of your apps. Just set limits. Like, start and abide by them. Like, don't allow yourself to go on it too much, because you can slowly, if you put boundaries in that are achievable for yourself, you will slowly be able to do it. You can't just do it straight away and go, right, today I'm just going to change it. I mean, you can try, but if you go, I'm not going to get on my phone at all until 7 o'clock each night. Well, it's probably unlikely that's going to happen, right? So there are all different things you can do on your phone to help set up, for strategies for that. And then let's come underneath to, how is it that we're so easily taken advantage of in that way? And I think it's because there are intentional ways that we are disconnected from ourself by institutions, by advertising, through the government, etc. Because then when we are disconnected from our unique inner self and our intuition, we can be controlled in the way that factory hands are. So we produce, we create money, we pay all these exorbitant taxes, we keep everyone, all the people who've got huge amounts of wealth, we're the ones that are keeping all that running, and we are programmed so that we do that. That's what happens. If you are so intact in yourself and you so know who you are as a person and you love who you are as a person and you can sit in your body with ease, you don't need this shit. Like you don't need addiction when you feel that way. You don't need them. So every addiction you have is pointing to something else that is going on underneath. The programming that has gone on for centuries is wild. I mean, if you peel back the layers of every institution, so when I was a kid at school, things I learned about history were a lie. They weren't even true. Like I learned that Captain Cook was this hero and that our Aboriginal people were these savages and they were terrible, terrible people. It's like, it was a lie. It was just a lie. Do you know what I mean? And that was, as far as I'm concerned, that was not a mistake that I was taught that about our Australian history, right? And it's taken so many years to unpick it. We have been programmed over and over and over again. You spoke about vaccinations earlier, and you think about the medical industry, how programmed we are around that. It's insane. Like the medical Western medicine used to, medicine as it is now, the Western medicine used to be on a par with things like homeopathy and herbal medicine, naturopathy. They were all on a level, and then suddenly, like the pharmaceutical
Rockefellers.
companies started investing in Western medicine, and then the curriculum in the universities they got on the boards of the universities and started influencing what the curriculum was, so that now the curriculum, I mean, I'm sure it's changing now, but by and large has been, what drug do you give to what diagnoses? So it becomes a selling agent all of its own, right? And then we've been programmed to give our power over to the medical world. You know, I'm on a call next week with several women about cancer and all the different options for cancer treatments all around the world. But in Australia, it's like
Chemo.
it's chemotherapy basically, and which can be which can ruin people's bodies, you know. So anyway, I'm getting a little bit off track now. But we have been programmed to be consumers. And if you keep coming back to every addiction you have, whether it's online shopping, whether it's your phone, whether it's food, whether it's alcohol, whether it's hopefully not cigarettes, but now it's like vapes, we are programmed to buy those things and to want them in our lives. And then they hold us there. This is the best creation so far in terms of holding us there because of the hit that it gives us while it does it. And not only that, but in our social media, so the social media ends up setting itself up to reflect what our belief system is. So it becomes this like self-referential thing where we're looking at our social media and it's like, yeah, that's exactly right. Like it's backing what our belief system is. So we become our own little microcosm with our phone, and then someone else has a different opinion. We're like, what haven't you seen on social media? It's like, well, theirs is different, isn't it? Because theirs fully supports their whole belief system. You're programmed, Ebony. Everyone's programmed to look at these things and like, yeah, just you got to do the work on it. And if you can't get away from it, if you've got to then go, well, what am I feeling? Like when I put if I turn my phone off and I chuck it over there, what happens to me? Do I have fear that comes up? Do I have, it's probably fear, a sense of anxiety that comes up. Then you need to learn how to actually sit with that anxiety and work with that anxiety. So if you have, let's say I turn my phone off and I have fear that comes up that, oh my God, but like, what if one of my children ring me because something's happened? I can't turn my phone off. I can't turn my phone off. Then that will then send my nervous system into a threat response and bang, I'm back on, turning my phone back on. So it becomes this like thing that goes on inside us. I'm trying to find the right word in case, because
Well,
probably
it's
people
being
aren't actually
scared
listening,
of
right?
that. It's being not comfortable in your fight or flight and not having the tools to say your body's got that threat. So it makes you feel like you've got the tiger in the room and not being able to work yourself through it and go, there's no tiger in the room. I'm safe. It is okay. Knowing the tools to work through it as opposed to
knowing
going,
knowing how to work with it, yeah. So you don't get in that spin cycle, because the spin cycle is your inner world, you get the anxiety, that's telling your nervous system there's a threat in the room. Then your nervous system sends your body into different responses, and then you have thoughts and behaviors that come from that. So then you can trick yourself into, oh, I do need to turn my phone on, and then your behavior is to go and turn it on. So see how it's that spin cycle that happens.
Um,
I hope I didn't go off on too much of a tangent. And I'm so passionate about the programming we've all had. Like I'm so passionate about it because we've been traumatized and programmed and traumatized and programmed and all these layers that then fuck up our ability to be really beautiful, like, present parents. And it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's been purposeful. To disconnect the mother and child has been a very purposeful thing that's happened that is being undone. Like people are undoing it now, but it's yeah, that's probably a whole nother podcast that we can talk about, a parenting one where we can go into like exactly how we've been programmed to disconnect from our children.
Oh, I'm keeping what you just said in this because I think we as mums, when we're a stay-at-home mum and we're choosing to be the sole carer, main caregiver for our kids, I think we can think then we've got this hand up that we're like doing it better. But I think this is why the phone addiction is so prevalent, because if we're on it, we may as well be at work, and they might be in actually better
Mm,
hands if they were in the hands of somebody else. So
mm.
we do need to go into this and work on this addiction, and pull ourselves up on it, because otherwise they're still winning. They still have the upper hand. We're still being torn away
They've
from our
got it.
kids.
Yep. They've got it. They've done it, and they're so clever. They've now done it in a new way. And that's why I say this is the most addictive thing. It's so clever. It's not like drinking alcohol or taking a drug. It adapts itself to suit you, to keep you addicted. It's wild. Imagine if you could have a drug that, like a meth, that then adapted itself to suit your biology to be even more suitable to your trauma. Like that's what this shit does. It's wild. But then it's also quite a good tool at times. So it's about us getting smart about using the tool for what it is. It's like the medical system. There's like I still use the medical system. There are good things about it. There are good doctors, and then there's parts that I'd go hell no to, like absolutely not. And you spoke about vaccinations earlier. Like my firstborn is now 18, and I started giving him vaccinations. And then I started to question them. And I'm like, I don't think so. He's not the same kid afterwards. Like he cries a lot and all the rest. Like I don't think these are good for him. And the doctor absolutely had to go at me and shut me down. And that made me go, well,
Question
that's
yourself.
weird. Why wouldn't they want to know what I'm saying? So then I went away and I did a lot of research, my own research. Then I went, I'm not taking him back again. And then my other two had none whatsoever. And I have sat in a doctor's office where I had the three of them. I think it's one of them had like a school sore or something. I can't remember, but it was something quite mild. And he was like, why have you had one? You've given one some vaccinations and the other two have had none. And he was terrified. And I said, just go look up their medical records right now and you tell me who's had the most medical issues. And it's a vaccinated one. The unvaxxed have never even been on antibiotics or anything. And one of them's nearly 16. Like how help is wild, it's like so good. Yeah. And we get programmed out of fear as well to believe all this stuff. And we have to uncover it ourselves, Ebony.
You
And we
really
have
do,
to
and it
work
does.
hard to uncover it and fight for it.
It does. And before we move on to the other two reasons why people may be drawn to seeing a therapist or a healer like yourself, Liz, and what I want to go into is the insecurities and sexual abuse, is one of the things that's coming up for me right now is keeping us disattached from our intuition as a mother. And I think the biggest power we hold as women, or as humans, but as women, is our intuition, and how to guide each other in trusting, because I think we're questioned and then we turn on the brain and then we question how we feel, and then we get confusion because we're in a state of, well, I just feel this certain way, but my head is saying this other thing. But coming back, and if you're sitting here listening to me right now, there's always going to be a time that we can all think of that we wish we had just listened to our gut. And It can be scary. I just had taken my daughter Sage to the doctors just the other day actually because she had a tick bite on her. And so I freaked out straight away. My mind goes, Lyme disease, da, 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 all of these really, really, really scary things. And took her to the doctors. The doctor removed it, and the doctor was his full body response. Well, she hasn't had her immunizations. Oh, she needs all these antibiotics. She needs antibiotics for 14 days and da 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 da. And in that moment, as a mum, it is only natural for us to want to do what's best for our child. And I just want to also share this because sometimes we need an invitation to trust. And so for me, that day, I had to take the script of antibiotics and go home and sit with it. And the first thing I do is also always go to my closest friends who are very like-minded. They wouldn't choose antibiotics for their kids straight off the bat. They would also go home and sit with it. First thing I did was say to them, where would your comfort levels be with this? And we spoke about it, and I was like, okay, cool. And what I love about this is we also usually go, how do you feel? Where does your body feel? And I said, well, she looks fine. She's thriving. She's happy. Her body's good. And it's like, okay. So one thing as a mum, if you're missing that support where you can just hold on, you can just go to somebody and there's no fear in their body, they have trust in you, they listen to your intuition too, they guide you back to your intuition, go to that person because we all need that person. I'm that person for others and I need that for others. I need that support from others too to go, just trust. And where are you at? What's your gut telling you? Let's just get out of the mind, remove what the doctor had just said to you, remove the worst case scenario, just sit with it. And one of the things that makes us realize is there is no tiger in the room. There is no rush for the antibiotics just yet. They're doing their job by telling us the risk. Yeah, well, yeah, there is a chance that she could get Lyme disease. And there is. There also is a chance that you could die in a car accident on the way to work tomorrow. We all have to assess our own risk and we all need to sit with it and then sit with our intuition. Okay. Okay. So I had to come home, talk to my girlfriends first, talk to my like-minded mums. And that to me is my first line. Okay. Then I have to go to my next line, which is just sitting with my daughter and being like, how are you? Where's your body at? What are you feeling? Getting out of my mind, all of the noise, removing the energy from that doctor that I had picked up, who was in a fearful state. He has seen a lot of the worst case scenarios. Removing that. That is not my energy. That is not my daughter's. Where are we right now? And the amount of nights I've had to do this with fevers, putting the temp gauge down and being like, just sitting with her and being like, is she okay? She's cool. The temperature gauge says something that Google might say is a medical emergency, but where are we at? And nearly every time it comes back to now we're sweet. Now we're good. She's good. And then that can lead us on to feeling confident in our decision to decline the antibiotics. But I just want to preface because I think as when I came into this space only 4 years ago of choosing not to vaccinate, choosing to decline pharmaceuticals, I think there's a lot of noise and ego in that space. And when you actually put in the space, it's fucking hard. And when you haven't dealt with your shit and when you haven't felt safe in your body and when you have questioned your intuition and when it's been wrong before and it's okay, it's been wrong before. Or I think there's so much there. But I think as women, and for me in my own journey, becoming a mum has been the most fucking sensational, most exhilarating, the most powerful, the most potent, the most incredible invitation to heal. And the hardest. Just want to
Yeah,
add
your
that in
kids do
there.
that for you. Yeah.
But I
Your
just want
kids
to,
will do that every time. They're like, you'll heal. Now's the time. And if you don't heal this, I'm going to show you again tomorrow and next day and next day and next day. Yeah, they tell you.
so what?
Ebony, let me put this out there for you that you think about how we are wired to try and protect our children. That's part of our wiring, full stop. Our intuition also comes from the same place inside our body that all of our emotions do. So when we are taught over time that our emotions are not culturally acceptable or not socially acceptable, and so we have to shut them down, and then our nervous system goes into a threat response to what's inside of our body, it's actually quite hard to access our intuition, but we still have this drive to protect our children, which is once again where we can fall into the fear process and go, I just want to protect my child without trusting ourselves first. So once again, to really reclaim that intuition, it's really about going, how do I come back into my body? How do I go through these layers that I've learned over time from trauma, from being shut down, from being told there's something wrong with me when I express myself? So then I feel like my internal world, is there something wrong with me internally? How do I heal that? So I regain access to my clear intuition, because 100% you do, but you've got to go through unpacking the things first so you can get there. And so your nervous system goes, nah, I've got this. My body's a safe place. Because if your nervous system goes, hang on a second, how do I know that? And then you get fear chucked into the mix, and then you have that biological wiring of, I want to protect my child. That's when you can start to make rash decisions about what you're going to do that are in favor of what someone else is saying rather than what your heart really believes to be correct.
I really love that you've touched on that. So, if you have made it this far, you are going to love everything we unpacked in the second half of this episode. We unpack relationships with narcissists. We unpack more on addiction. We unpack so much that is going to help you break free. It's going to help you have tools, and it's going to help you better understand what your body is trying to tell you. So please don't go anywhere. And while you wait for part 2 of this episode, please share this episode with a friend. Stop what you're doing right now. Jump on wherever you're listening from. Leave us a review and tag us in socials. I'm on a mission to take you all on a journey to better heal our environments, to heal ourselves, to better set this world up and the environment up for our children. So leave a review wherever you're listening from, and I cannot wait to share this second half of this episode with you. We'll see you next week.